one person will present our ideas and our collective research, that is Ana Filipa, and then I can make some comments and open the debate for the participants. If anybody wants to make some questions, and we can go further in share with the participants our experience, and also our difficulties, our solutions, and so on. Thank you, Philip. Ana Filipa, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel. As you can see, so we will be talking today about qualitative research on preventing gender-based violence, and we will be mentioning two projects that we have been working on. Maria José has been working on both. I have been working on one of them, so I will also ask her to pitch in or comment in anything she finds relevant whenever I'm talking about the project that I am not part of, which is ATHENA. So, and the two projects we will be talking about today is ATHENA, like I've said, but also Project Bounce. They will both deal with the prevention of gender-based violence, but in a but both of them with different approaches and different target audiences, so to speak. But just prior to presenting the projects, let me just continue here. There we go. So this is a small overview of what we are going to do today. So we are going to present the researchers, not only us, but also Raquel, who's also here for only for a brief period of time, but she is also in the Bounce project, and also other researchers who have been participating with us in both projects. We will provide you with a brief contextualization and a brief context of these projects. We will talk about them, their lines of action, and what we have been doing exactly with them. We'll also provide some methodology examples, and we bring samples of some of the results, of the preliminary results we already have, and then we will be opening a discussion. Maria José Magalhães will speak, and we are also going to open the debate and the analysis and towards a final reflection. So without further ado, let us just present our researchers. So you have the first picture is Maria José. Then we have Professor Susana Coimbra, and she's not going to be here today, but she works in the ATHENA project. Professor Isabel Viana, she's not here today as well. She was going to be, but sadly she could not, and she works with us on the Bounce project. Then you see Raquel, who's also here present with us, and she works with us in the Bounce project. Myself for the Bounce, and also Camila, who is a researcher on both the Bounce and ATHENA. And also tell you that Professor Maria José is the coordinator of both of these projects. So on to a little bit about what we do. Maria José, do you want to introduce yourself since you're here? We can't hear you.
My microphone. I'm professor in the Department of Science of Education or Educational Sciences in the Faculty of Psychology and Science of Education. Oh, and have been working on preventing gender violence for some decades. So I think it's enough.
Thank you. And then we have Professor Susana Coimbra, who's also a teacher at the faculty, and she's a researcher in ATHENA Begin, like I told you. She has a strong experience in conducting quantitative and qualitative research, especially with vulnerable populations. Then Professor Isabel Viana is not from the Porto University. She's from the University of Minho in Braga, and she works her specialty, or the fields of specialty are in the Department of Curricular Studies, and so she does a lot of work in qualitative, but also in a curriculum, which is very important. We wish she could have been here to talk about it. So although Raquel is here, Raquel, do you want to introduce yourself or should I?
I think I don't know if you can hear me because
We
I'm at
can.
the car right now. Sorry, once again, I'm not able to be here today. But as Anna already told, I work as a researcher in the Bound project at the Faculty of Psychology and Education Science in the University of Porto. And right now, my main object of studies is actually gender-based prevention in schools specifically. So that's it. And once again, sorry, but I know that I'm being very, very well represented by Anna and Professor Maria José. So thank you both of them. And I hope that you enjoy this moment of discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. So myself, I work in the PAMS project, and I've been working in gender equality and prevention of gender equality for a few years as well. And I also have some research experience where I'm one of the researchers of the national study in Portugal for teen dating violence and other projects as well. Camila, she's our criminology member, and she's right now doing her PhD in criminology here in Porto, and she works with the issues of intimate partner violence and women's fear of crime. That's her focus. She also participates in other projects apart from Bounds, such as they have to do with femicide, but also the research on dating violence here in Portugal. So this is us. This is the team. So we are hoping that this panel contributes to the dissemination of the work that we have been done, and to share with you what we have been doing so far, and but also to talk about a little bit about prevention of gender-based violence in the different contexts, and how our actions that are needed, ours and yours and your researchers as well, how we can share our experiences here, and how we can contribute, and I think help each other, especially in the time of COVID. Maybe towards the end we'll ask how have your research, how have you been conducting your research in this environment? We think it's a little bit harder, and we hope that we can reflect about this and the different methodologies that we are using to approach gender-based violence in many forms, in its many ways. So to provide you with a bit of context about the projects, we'll start out with the project with the Bounds. This is one we are both participating in. So the Bounds project, Bounds means bonds, boundaries, and violence, and it's been developed here by the Faculty of Psychology and Education Sciences in the University of Porto, but also in partnership with UMAR, which is a feminist non-governmental organization that we're both part of. Which is Alternative and Response Women's Association, but also a Center for Gender Studies in Portugal, which is CIEG. And what we aim to do, our primary objectives are to understand and evaluate what works in the programs that are implemented in schools that talk about gender-based violence. We aim to understand the long-term effects. So while we are in schools and we have different programs in schools in Portugal, how do these how the topics that are approached in these programs, what's the actual impact in young people? You know, how are we thinking about, are we thinking about obviously the citizenship, but what kind of impact will have on them as they grow? And we want to figure out what kind of these impacts are, because we also want to create foundations for educational policies. So we want, after gathering all this data and all the analysis, we want to make sure that we can provide for our decision makers, we can tell them what exactly has been working, so they can add this to future policies they might be doing, and they can keep these dimensions in mind, because we think they might be important later on when we are rethinking or thinking about another ways of approaching gender-based violence, for example, in school contexts specifically. We're not doing this by ourselves. We have other partner countries with us. So we have Brazil, and in Europe we have the United Kingdom, we have Greece, and we have Germany, and we have consultants in each and every one of these countries as well. In regards to the project ATHENA, so the ATHENA project is also being developed in different countries, and it's the European Cooperation Against Gender-Based Violence towards people with intellectual disabilities, specific women, and specifically women who have been victims of domestic violence or gender-based violence. So the project aims to offer resources and tools to professionals who assist this vulnerable group, and in the same way to empower victims. So it's the intervention will be two ways, not only with professionals, but also with the women who have been victims and suffering or survivors of gender-based violence. In both interventions, be with professionals but also with women, the purpose is to develop their skills and their personal abilities, and for professionals specifically is to help them and also create some foundations for later policies, or create some or at least to have to respond to their necessities, to their needs, to specifically with training. Let me just, I apologize, let's check here. Okay, thank you. I was just checking here the chat. I didn't know if someone was telling me something. So how does the ATHENA Begin does this work with both professionals and women with intellectual disabilities? They use a mixed method approach that has been used to achieve the main objectives of the project. So they will be using questionnaires, focus groups with professionals and also future professionals, people who will work with these victims later on. And also they will try to check exactly what are their needs, so of these caregivers. So not only are we talking about caregivers who are professionals, but we're also talking about caregivers who are in the family, who also need a lot of attention.
Yes,
and
informal caregivers, yes, informal. Yes, thank you, Anna.
Maria, did you want to say something
No,
else?
no, go on, go on. You
Everything
are
is fine.
excellent. Yes.
Thank you. So, all right. So I told you that in Athena project, they were not doing this by themselves. So they have a consortium also with Spain and with Greece, and all of these countries will be implementing these data gathering techniques, and they will all be providing results. So in terms of the lines of action and how we're doing these projects. So we're back to the Bounce project once again. So we have, in order to respond to our research questions, we too, along with the ATHENA project, thought about methodologies and techniques of data collection that could have both qualitative and quantitative methods. So we don't think of them, this is something that we will say at the end, but we don't think of these ways of gathering data as opposed. We think of them as a collaborative always. And we know, of course, that specifically when it comes to the Bounce project, since it's a project that has to do with education and gender, we also know that the field of education, it implies a lot of it's cross-cutting and transversal to a lot of different areas. So we too have to think about that when we approach this. So in order to do that, we would have to reflect in a more broad and diverse and even heterogeneous way in the different phenomena, about the different phenomena and the different problems, so we can actually understand what works in the preventing gender-based violence. Like I said, so we are using a mixed methodology, so a collaborative way of collecting data, and exactly what this methodology will be. So we will be doing focus groups. We haven't started doing them yet, but we will. We will also be doing biographical narratives with young people, and these focus groups will also be with young people who have been or or who are still in a prevention, gender-based violence prevention programs at schools. The biographical narratives will also be with young people that have been in gender-based violence programs. The interviews we have already done, and we brought a few samples of our results. And these interviews were done with facilitators of the gender-based violence prevention programs. Some of them were teachers, some of them were people outside of school. And we also did a couple of interviews with very strategic decision makers. And we brought a sample also of one of those interviews. The questionnaires we will be doing, they're finalized, they've been approved by the Ministry of Education here in Portugal, and we are on the verge of starting to implement them and disseminate them through young people. So we are interested in young people from 14 to 22 years old who have integrated projects or who have participated in gender-based violence prevention programs, or who have one or more, or maybe those who haven't, but maybe those who haven't can also tell us a few things about how they wish these programs were approached. At the end, what we want to do together with all our partner countries, so Brazil, Germany, Greece, and United Kingdom, what we want to do is a hermeneutical comparison with these partner countries. So some of these partner countries, they will not be doing all the data collection that we are doing. They are not going to do the focus groups, for example, but they will be doing biographical narratives or in-depth interviews with some of young people. They will also be interviewing some of the professionals, and they will also be doing questionnaires, albeit in a very lower number. So we have around 1,500 questionnaires that we will be doing, and they will each of them do 200. So there's a bit of a difference. At the end, however, we will do a comparison so that the policies that we're trying to create, or the policies or the foundations for these policies can be something that's thought out and planned not only in Portugal but European wise, or at least involving more countries, both European and the one in Brazil as well. So for the ATHENA projects, so like I said, they also had quantitative methods and also qualitative. When it comes to the quantitative, they have they were doing a 20 question survey on the needs, on the assessment of the needs of the professionals who work with vulnerable populations. And they also used this questionnaire for professionals and future professionals. So this survey had around 4 groups. So one question with informed consent, as all of them have to do with the concern with the ethical concerns, but also a set of 16 statements or affirmations related to their personal and professional situations, related also to the most and the least valued features of their work, related to the support they thought they had while they're doing their job, and also their satisfaction level and how happy they are with their job. This questionnaire also had a Maslow burnout inventory, and burnout was one of the key words in the results of these questionnaires. And lastly, also had one question about the impact that the COVID and the pandemic is having on their work. In regards to the qualitative process or the qualitative methodologies, they are doing focus groups with different groups, and these groups are identified as important informants on the topic, and they also want to amplify their voices. So more, I think, than giving someone a voice, you would amplify. They already have a voice, but we need to be more, we need to listen to it, and we haven't. And they also do, and I think what has been happening here, and one of the reflections we can bring you today is that the difficulty in combining all of these methods, so, and the difficulty in combining the data provided by both quantitative and qualitative data collection processes, and how to do this, the triangulation with the collected information. So to tell you also that the 2 focus groups were carried out in each partner country with the professionals and also the future professionals, like I said. And who are these professionals? They are psychologists, they are educational scientists, criminologists, and people who are involved in general in the field of domestic violence and victim support. But because these focus groups, or because this project also aims to understand the needs of the formal and the informal caregivers, so the also other focus groups were also held with the relatives and caregiver relatives who are usual, at least here in Portugal, and I'm thinking in Spain as well, might be the primary caregivers of their of these victims, but also observers of disabled people with intellectual disability, and the focus groups were done 2 in each partner country. Still in the ATHENA project, in terms of quantitative study, the method, so they had around 311 professionals that chose to participate in the quantitative survey, and so some from Greece, some from Portugal as well, and a smaller number from Spain. When it comes to data collection, it was collected online using Lime Survey and Google Docs, the platforms, and it was conducted in the 2nd semester of 2020. So COVID already in full power, unfortunately. And the survey was disseminated through personal contacts and social media of researchers involved in the process, mostly working with people with intellectual disabilities. So it was also very, very centered and very much to the point. And the participation on the study was, of course, anonymous and voluntary, as it was said in the consent form. For the qualitative study, they had a total of 21 professionals, 10 young professionals, and 24 formal and informal caregivers who participated in the focus groups. Efforts were made to ensure the diversity and the representation from different areas, and that's why we have a diversity of different fields of specialty here who work with victims, because working with victims and survivors also it's always good to have different people from different
scientific areas. Yes.
Thank you. So the procedure of data collection, of course, the constraints of the pandemic. So we've been having the qualitative data was collected through online focus groups, not exactly the same as being there, but it is what it's possible to do. The participants were recruited from the research teams networks in each country, and it was also, of course, voluntary. All participants were contacted by phone or by email, and the usual ethical concerns and processes were looked after. Thank you. So, as in usual focus groups fashion, they can be a bit of a long session, so between 1 hour and a half and 2 hours and a half. Maria José, I don't know if you want to comment on something in the meantime.
No. I just want to point that I'm here.
Okay.
So go on, Ana Filipa. Thank you.
Thank you. So the methodologies. So right now we are going to present you with some of the samples of our data collection tools, and also with a bit of the results, at least of the ones that we have. So we can call them the preliminary results, at least for bounds. So on the first project, we brought you. So the first thing we did a while ago, I told you about the questionnaires that we did, that we had 1,500 questionnaires that we are on the verge of implementing. But I apologize, I forgot to tell you that there's a first phase of questionnaires that we did both in school clusters and throughout Portuguese schools and throughout Portuguese municipalities, which is a mapping of a gender-based violence prevention program. So with this tool, what we wanted to do, our aim was to try to figure out between school clusters, which is the way that the Portuguese schools are organized in, but also in municipalities. What was the knowledge or where were these prevention programs, in which schools, in which cities, and who was doing them? So who were these facilitators? Were the facilitators the teachers of the schools? Because it can happen. Were the facilitators people coming to the school, like authorities, for example, or non-governmental organizations? So we wanted to know a little bit more of where we can find these programs, and what's going on and who's doing them, and pretty much a lot of information about them. So what we brought you here is a sample of this questionnaire. So we have the number and the themes of implemented prevention programs at schools. This sample is from the questionnaire that we've sent to school clusters. So the first question is in Portuguese, and it asks how many programs were developed in your school cluster or in your school in the last 5 years, and what were the themes and the topics of those interventions and of those programs. Was it, like, the first option here is human rights, then we have citizenship, then we have gender equality, then domestic violence, then teen dating violence, then sex education, or, and if you watch like health education in a more broadened topic, and also sexuality. So all of these were, and then we have an option for other. These online, let me just show you. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. I should have put this one, the one above, sorry. This is a sample of, we had 74 responses on this, on the topic of the themes. And as you can see here, throughout schools, so on these 74 responses, what we had is mostly dating violence and health education, human rights, citizenship, gender equality, domestic violence here are usually the most talked about topics at these programs at school. This mapping, so like I told you, was done through online questionnaires. We engaged with 309 municipalities, which is the whole of the municipalities in Portugal, and 810 schools, mainland and islands as well. So as you can see here, although we have insisted and persisted our contacts, we only had 87 municipalities answering and 78 schools. And then the findings that we have from this questionnaire, so we were asking about the program length. So if they do have the programs, how long do they last? So is it a 5+ or year-long session? So is it sorry, is it if they've been doing this, you know, for at least in less than 5 years, and if they had year-long sessions, or if they had short or less than 5 sessions. So we considered long programs the ones that had at least 5 sessions, or the ones who had, if you go year-long, if you have sessions during the whole of the school year, and we considered the program length short if it had less than 5 sessions throughout the school year. The themes I've already showed you. And we were also asking if they had additional actions or initiatives. So this is what I've shown you before. So these are the questionnaire dimensions we are still working on, and they were not included in the analysis. I just showed you a sample because we had different things to talk about here. But I can include, if you want, then other results. So which dimensions are not yet in the analysis? It's the inclusion of the gender perspective approach in the program design. So we had different programs with different lengths and also focusing on different themes. We had the inclusion of gender-based violence and violence against women and girls in municipalities and education policies. So we want to see if these two themes of gender-based violence and violence against women and girls are included in the educational policies at a local level. We want to try to understand what's their approach to violence in terms of concept, what they understand. When we talk about violence, what is it exactly they are talking about? We also want to see, which is very important for us to check, the young people's agency and initiative and intervention. So if young people had a voice, either when these projects were being designed or in the implementation of the projects themselves. So if they had a say in the way they were being done, or if it's a program that people implement and young people are merely almost spectators of the program, and also the partnership. Who is facilitating these projects, and if there are partnerships between schools and non-governmental organizations that, depending on their work, they're usually more connected to the grassroots movement and have a very different perspective than other people would than in schools. So still in the Bounce project, now we are moving on to the interviews. And we, like I told you, we have interviewed the facilitators of these programs. Some of them were teachers, some of them were people from the outside of the school. So in regards to
next steps.
Next step. Sorry, I don't.
Go on.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
So we were asking them a variety of things, and some of the things that we asked were about this part in particular is about the agency of young people. Like I told you, this is something that's important for us, and so the purpose of this part of the interview was trying to understand how much of a say do these young people have in these programs. But as you can see here in the sixth question, we also wanted to know the teacher's perceptions, the teacher or the facilitator's perceptions about the program's long-term education and learning. So their long-term impact, what the teachers and the facilitators think is important and students take with them after they finish these programs. So one of the teachers in regards to about the long-term impact of prevention programs, one of the teachers said, I think that what remains with our students and what they take, what's important for them after the intervention depends a lot on their realities and lived experiences. What leaves a mark for some may not leave for others. So she was talking about different contexts for different students and the way they approach those topics that we saw a while ago. So gender-based violence, gender equality, domestic violence, etc. Each student will take what's more important to them. So it depends a lot on their experiences and their realities. Another teacher about the methodologies and strategies that would work best to facilitate this change. She told us that it will always integrate group dynamics or non-formal education where they feel welcome and at ease to participate, where they can experience and witness their own transformation. This would leave a mark in them. To approach these topics, we need non-formal education, projects, and recreational activities. So one of the things that we are concerned about is, of course, when we want to provide foundations for policies, is to make sure we know what works best. And if we're talking about school contexts, sometimes the way we approach these topics is very scholarly, if you will. So a lot of theory and very little of practice and other type of activities. And what this teacher is saying is that we need non-formal education. We need recreational activities. We need other pedagogical strategies and activities so young people can actually participate and enjoy their time. So they're enjoying themselves and they're learning at the same time. Another teacher told us about we asked about what was the ideal primary prevention program, and she said, it's a difficult question. I can see a project that lasts 3 school years or 1 cycle as it's organized here, or even one for the 3rd cycle, so between the 7th and the 9th grades, and another one from secondary school. So she's saying that for each level of education, so the project would have to be adapted to each one of them. And then she says, then develop basic orientations with the contributions from the school community and projects that are age appropriate. So she wants to adapt these projects to their target audiences, which is a very good idea. But also, don't close them in school. Open them to the contributions to everyone who's around the school and who wants to participate. Sorry. And one of our decision makers, we asked them about why they consider gender-based violence programs important. And she said that there is an international recommendation, namely the Istanbul Convention, that encourages member states to develop primary prevention programs. So it's important not only because it's in international documents, but also because it's essential to have these programs, and they should have a philosophy, a vision, and an intervention model that cannot be similar in every place. So adaptation, adapting things is also another key word here. It must adapt to each territorial and organizational reality. However, there should be a coherence and intervention so as to facilitate their assessments. Of course, so these are things that we already know. Moving on to biographical narratives. So we have another sample here. We have not done them yet. So like I told you before, this part specifically deals with schooling, the sensations and feelings and impressions that young people have from their school and the family influences. And you can see a lot of, on the right column, you can see a lot of, these are not questions, these are more, we know that the biographical narratives can be a little bit more spontaneous, and we should allow the person to talk. But since we are going to do them with the young people and they are not particularly prone to speaking, so these are just some of the prompts we have to encourage them to talk if they want to talk about these things. So relationship with their parents, positive events that took place within their family circle and that might have a significant contribution to their lives, their thoughts and feelings about education and curriculum, their concerns and expectations and reactions regarding activities developed in school. So we have a whole focus group planned. So for the ATHENA project, so like I told you, the ATHENA also had quantitative and qualitative methods. This cloud came from the questionnaires, so from the quantitative research methods, and the open questions at the end had the professionals talking about these basically the words that you see here. So they mentioned a lot, they talked a lot about burnout. They're very tired and they don't feel they don't have enough support for what they do. So the word clouds, the way that they work, the more someone references a word, the bigger it will come up. So we have here pandemic, which is obviously a problem for all of us. Lack of support, lack of training. We have here support for professionals. So we have the need for more knowledge, communication, difficulty. So we don't see a lot of encouraging words for now. And on the one hand, that's exactly why we need, or should I say, on the other hand, that's why we need this project and to work with these professionals. When it came to the focus groups, so now the qualitative methodologies of the ATHENA project, we have some of the training dimensions that were identified. So one of the purposes of the ATHENA project is not also to provide foundations for policies, but it's also to make sure that they can create a training program for professionals. And these are some of the things that they wanted to check. So intimate partner violence in the different fields, in the field of victimization under gender-based violence. So these are some of the things that are important. Consequences of abuse, the risk assessment, the surviving strategies. We also have another concern here, for example, very important, the ethics in intervention, because we are always important in any intervention, but specifically relevant or especially relevant when we're talking about victims with vulnerabilities. So having the necessary skills for intervention with victims with intellectual disabilities. What is the interventional protocol? We have some other things here, which is avoid infantilization. So to make sure we're not treating victims just because they are intellectually disabled. So any intellectual disability with different degrees. But some of the stereotypes we can have against people who have intellectual disabilities might lead us to treat them as if they're children and forget here in air quotes that they're people. They have the right to autonomy and agency, and we have to amplify and also validate their voice because they have one. Some relevant quotes from this focus group. So on about the informal focus group in caregivers for Spain, we have someone who says, sanitary professionals should be taught how to deal with people with intellectual disabilities. We, as relatives, suffer very much with a lack of knowledge and understanding about intellectual disability, for instance, in the emergency rooms. I think this is specifically for the emergency rooms. There should be specific guidelines to help people with intellectual disabilities in healthcare. Professionals in Portugal said, training is needed. So this is exactly what the project is also about. There are many projects that are stagnated due to the lack of investments. I believe that all actors who partake in intervention towards these victims ought to have some training to do. Professionals in Spain also mentioned empower and training the victim is important, which is something that ATHENA will also do. The professionals of special centers need more training. So again, training as a very mentioned issue. And also in Spain, psychologists of an association that provide support to people with intellectual disabilities mention the professional needs skills on empathy and dialogue, how to create a safe environment. Language skills are essential now. So these are different needs, but also the need for training and also a more human side in terms of communication that we saw a while ago. So with empathy on the dialogue. All right, so the debate and analysis. In here, we wanted to invite then the other members. I'll be quiet for a moment now, and we'll be in this case I'll be inviting Maria José, Professor Maria José, to talk a bit about her experiences also with the qualitative and quantitative research, and as a researcher and as someone who has been doing research for many years now, some of the decades. So thank you, Maria José. I will release
so
you.
Thank you, Ana Filipa, for your excellent presentation. You have been very very accurate in the presentation of our methodologies and the preliminary results of both projects. So just for the debate, this panel was designed to reflect upon the difficulties of what is being called mixed methods. So when we come to the articulation or the hermeneutic comparison, as we usually call it, between quantitative results and qualitative results, it is not easy. The methodologies are designed in a different rationale and with different objectives. So this is very difficult. What we are doing is trying to see where they can be combined, but the voice of a person and to really validate this voice and to give it the just weight that we want to give to the voices and to different stories and different narratives and different voices. It becomes very difficult to articulate with the quantitative results that gave us more averages and statistical and numbers, and the person is really submersed in this in the numbers. So we would like to encourage you to raise questions for our debate, that we can share with you our our difficulties and sometimes our solutions for as far as we have come to some solutions. So our aim is that to make sense about articulation of both methodologies, not just link them in a descriptive way or just to fulfill the objective of mixed methods. So if you have some questions we would like to share with you, or maybe you have some experiences that you want to share with us.
I do believe we have a first question here. If I think it's Selena, she asks, are these questions instruments and English as well? Can you be more specific in terms of which
Questionnaire you are talking about? Yes.
Maybe you are mentioning the first instrument that we saw from the mapping, but I'm not sure. If you could either through the chat or talking to us, let us know, please. And in the meantime, if you have any more questions, the first one, no. So the one with the mapping, because it was done, it's only going to be done in Portugal. They're all instruments here. Both questionnaires are in Portuguese.
Only the part of the research that is that will be comparative with other countries will have translations in English. Anyway, Ana Filipa presented the issues, the questions raised, so you can have a flavor of what questions were asked. Also, we have in Portugal, maybe in your countries you also have that when we are dealing with schools, we have to have the instruments and the tools for the research in schools being approved by the Ministry of Education. Maybe it's the same in your countries.
If you want to, I was actually looking for the questionnaires. I can show you a little bit more. They will be in Portuguese, but I can translate them as I go. Do you think it's a good idea, Maria José? Selena,
Selena has the hand, so maybe Selena, you can talk, and then we see if we can. Ana Filipa can translate the question, but after you, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, colleagues and the team, for sharing this information. I have particular interest because we are in the department, the nursing department, we are having a pending project that we are going to do with a nearby school to teach teachers on how to identify gender-based violence, in fact, victims of abuse in classes. So that's why I'm so interested even in the questions, to see and to compare, even though the contexts are different. Thank you very much. It was very informative and it gave me an idea of what and how to proceed going on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we can. I think we can elaborate a little bit more on that, because both myself and Maria José, we have been working for a while in prevention of gender-based violence. Well, she much more than I do, of course. But
I'm older. I'm older.
More experienced, and Maria José has also been the supervisor and of gender-based violence prevention programs that we also have at the non-governmental organizations. So there is, I can speak for that one because I've also participated in it before. And in Portugal, we've been having gender-based violence prevention programs after, I think, 2004, at least. Our organization has been implemented them in schools since 2004, more or less. schools usually here in the north of the country, because this is where the team was. But right now, the program that we have is happening and being implemented in different cities, and including one of the islands, the island of Madeira. And well, throughout the years, what we have been doing is not only as an organization, of course, it's important that the team decides very clearly early on what they want to do and the topics they want to approach. But then we celebrate protocols with schools and with school clusters. And then we talk with we will talk to the teachers. I'm not in one of those programs right now, but we talk a lot with our colleagues who are. And after celebrating these protocols, they implement these programs that are year-long programs. So at least with 15 sessions each, and then work with different classes and more than one class in a school if it's possible. And they work not only with the class, so with the students, but also with the teachers. And many of them are involved. They're engaged in what they're doing. And the sessions, although they are planned, but they are also a bit collaborative, because some of the findings we have from this project specifically, but also from what some of the literature has been telling us, is that it's a good thing when we provide the young people with the opportunity to be actual participants and to have and recognize their agency, and when we open enough space for them to have a say. So, for instance, in some of the projects we've seen, and this project as well that I'm talking right now, so the ones we have in schools, the facilitators ask the students. So they already know they're going to work with gender equality and gender-based violence, but they ask the students some of the things that interest them, and throughout the year they will be. And because the gender-based violence and gender equality have different entry points, so we can talk about these subjects over a variety of different topics. So we can talk about sports and gender equality. We can talk about video games and series and movies and gender equality. So there's always, we can talk about the events that happen on a daily basis, and that create a lot of concern here in Portugal, and talk about gender-based violence and gender equality and domestic violence. So it's always something, regardless, I think it's almost like regardless of what children are interested in and young people are interested, we can always insert gender equality, and we can always show them how everything is connected, and how oppression is systemic, and how we have to act on the structure itself. So I think it helps them to understand how gender-based violence is at the structure and at the root of things. And not just something we can change with the policies of, adding women or something like that. I don't know if Maria José wants to say anything else.
We have regarding to that, I only would like to add that during the intervention we also do a quantitative study about dating violence for many years, and that we have been comparing the results from 1 year to the other. We have also another issue, another question by Violet Shai. Thank you, about culture. It's a very important and a very relevant question. That's a topic, culture, racism, that we have been, and social class that we have been also inserting in our research, and also in an intersectional perspective, but also in the intervention. So it's not it's not a question that we can have a simple answer. It's very important and a complex one. So what I can say that is that if we use qualitative methods, the culture can be a dimension, not as a problem, but also as a enrichment of the research. And in qualitative research, the relationship between the researcher and the participants have the hierarchy less proeminent. So if we really want to do qualitative research, people have to be empowered, and we have in gender-based violence, we have to take care of the space, the way, the dialogue, and so on, of persons with different culture than ours, of the academic culture. So in qualitative research can be an easy way to train to our training to respect and listen and integrate the voices of groups that have been oppressed. Also in the intervention programs, as we have been doing, if the activities, as Ana Filipa has been describing, if the activities are based in establishing a space and time for young people or adolescents to decide and to define what is important for them. So and if we have a philosophy of empowering the groups that are subalternized and discriminated in the classroom or in the group, cultures can be culture can be a way to establish diatopic dialogue, hermeneutic dialogue, as some authors have been talking about. So the idea that Ana Filipa also talked about, that it's not a program, that one program and one session and one plan that fits all, but it's a general guidelines to establish a relationship with the group and to establish times and spaces for this intercultural dialogue and opportunities to discuss privilege and subalternity and submission, so subjection and the others. I don't know, Violet, if I answer to your question. We have already published one article, one chapter in a book about the problem of culture in intervention in, against domestic violence and child abuse and neglect. We have also manuals, como é que se diz, plural, for working with children and adolescents in this way, that it's not just respecting difference. It's more than that. It's a pedagogic way, as Paulo Freire has been for decades, and feminists and bell hooks and many people have been sharing with us, that it's a specific pedagogy where the students, the pupils or the participants have in fact effectively the possibility to to change what was previously planned. So Violet, I don't know if we answered to your question. Thank you. We have another question.
Before we go, let me just add something, because I remembered with the difficulty of cultures. When we, on the Bounce project, when we did an initial mapping in Portugal, But we also did a mapping, very generalized mapping in the countries that are our partners. So and then we were asking our consultants to check. So to each partner country, we searched what sort of gender-based violence programs those countries also had. So in Brazil, we had they have a law called Law Maria da Penha, and it's a law that's it's a law for domestic violence. And Maria da Penha is the name of the woman who was herself a victim of domestic violence.
Violence against women.
And violence
Violência
against
contra a
women.
mulher.
So it's both domestic
Yes.
violence, exactly. Thank you, Marisa, and violence against women. And they have a project called Maria da Penha vai às escolas. So Maria da Penha goes to school. So they have a lot of focus on domestic violence and violence against women. And another funny thing that we found out, for example, in Germany, the gender-based violence, the gender-based violence programs sometimes are not so centered in gender, are centered more in child abuse, or are also centered in also LGBTQ communities, which is also important. And is also when we search specifically for gender, a lot of things came up regarding masculinities and toxic masculinities and hegemonic masculinity, and the connection between masculinities and or a more toxic way of masculinity or a hegemonic way of masculinity, and right-wing and fascist political movements, because it's the different countries, and it was interesting to see how in European countries, but different European countries, we also have this difference in terms of, so Portugal relates a lot with domestic violence, gender-based violence, and dating violence. But in Germany, other things are important. In the UK, they also talk a lot about migrants and immigration, because you know it's a different concern. So different countries, even in Europe, have different approaches to what they perceive to be gender-based violence and who the target audience of these programs are.
Thank you, Anna. We have also a question by Dr. King Costa about the rationale for behavior that inflicts violence on partners. So Dr. King Costa, the causes of this violence are mostly and esmagadoramente are really social causes. So the patriarchal culture, the roots of culture in as far as we know, it's around the world against the persons that are or feminine or feminized, those that, as Ana Filipa said, not included in the hegemonic masculinity. They are taught in generally that they are entitled to the privilege of a dominant group, as a more value, more hegemonic masculinity are in the center of the media, the TV, they are taught, they are socialized in a way that they think they are entitled to receive the tributes of the violence, to receive the services, the sexual services or other kind of services by the other groups, namely women. So when you ask about the causes, that is this is the causes are mostly social. The violence in intimate partner relationships are not different. It's different in degree, but it's not different from the violence against women or against people not from the dominant white, masculine, and so on group. It's the extreme of the other social and structural violence that peoples of the subordinated, subalternized groups receive in work, in the streets, in the institutions, and so on. So this is the offenders of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. They extend the structural violence and social violence to the relationship in family or in the dating violence. So that's why we think that preventing gender violence need to tackle the socialization of the manly privilege and the subalternization of the girls and the women and the people who are not don't have the privilege to belong to the dominant group. So that's really crucial to begin to socialize boys to respect and observe observe and respect how girls have their opinions. Let me tell you one situation in one school that we have our program. The boys came to the classroom saying that women like the sex in a rough way. Gostam de sexo à bruta, rough way. So the facilitator asked the boy who said that, do you think the women like sex in a rough way? Yes, yes, yes. You know, she asked to the girls, and you, what do you think? You are girls. Do you think women like sex in a rough way? And the girls answered, no, we don't think so. We don't agree with that. And the boys immediately and very, very hard, they said, shut up, you don't know nothing. So more importantly, we know that many boys and also gays goes to the pornographic sites and so on. But you see how these little boys, 8, 9, 10 years old, they are already constructing a way to exercise the privilege and to ask for the tributes, violent tributes. Shut up, you don't know nothing at all. So that's the things that society, the messages in the advertising, the objectification of the sexualization of women, and also the diminishing of the other people besides the hegemonic masculinity, that prepares the caldo, the ground to these extreme behaviors, more severe, that violence against the intimate partner. So King Costa, I don't know if I
He answered very practical response.
Oh, thank you. My English depends on the days, but some days are not so fluent. So thank you very much. We have also other comments.
We have from Sonia Morgado. She asks, regarding violence, has the study been in contact with Project Improdova, not the Bounce project? And I'm not sure if the ATHENA project has. So the Improdova project is the improving frontline responses to high impact domestic violence. And I can see here is a research innovation project funded by the European Union and has different researchers from 8 countries, Portugal included. I'm not sure, Maria José, if
we are not in contact, but maybe it comes the possibility to be in contact. So we have also Violet. If you, we would be grateful if we can exchange some. I'm sending your email. Not your email. I'm sorry, my email. FPC. So, and you have also the that we can exchange some ideas if you want. Also, Sonia, are you part of the project that you are talking about, this in Prodova? Looks like a Eastern country name in Prodova.
it doesn't have any, I don't think it has any Eastern European.
No.
Slovenia, Portugal, Finland.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Sonia.
I did not know of the project.
Are you part, Sonia, of the project?
I think she is, yes.
Oh yes. Okay. If you think that it would be nice to contact, we can have a virtual meeting.
At the end of the presentation, we have the emails from both projects, but I can maybe I can already put them here, leave them here in the chat, just in case you want to get in touch with us. So for the Bounce project, in the meantime, do you have any other questions that you want to ask us, or maybe we can ask? How have your research been going in terms of COVID? You know, do you find any? Have you been meeting any obstacles? How have you been doing your research?
The research has been postponed because the COVID, of course, and because the interaction between partners was in a phase of residual contact. So it's in a standby, even though we have to keep going because the project ends in this year and it's financed by Agave, so we have to end it. In these circumstances, it's not easy.
Yeah, we understand. The Bounce project is also almost at the end. It's in the last year as well, financed by the Foundation for Science and Technology here in Portugal, FCT. But the contact with schools, and now that we know with COVID that we have a lockdown, and we'll have a lockdown in schools for 15 days. Those 15 days, COVID has been having a very big impact for us as well. And for ATHENA. Anything else you would like to share with us about your research projects, or any other questions you have for us for our projects, or anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
We are also ending, so it's almost 10 minutes to 3. I think we can end with also the last part of our presentation. So it's only a couple of slides, but we have reflected on the difficulties that we have on doing research, not only in COVID, but as we have said throughout the presentation, doing the triangulation of the methods and trying to figure out this. So we do want these qualitative and quantitative methods to be collaborative. We want this to be a collaborative research, so something that's harmonious, but it's going to be everything but harmonious, because it's it's a lot of work. And even though we have created these tools, and we have very specific purposes in mind, it's always complicated to then at the end get the results from this. but let me just share screen with you once more. So for our final reflection, so the mixed methods approach, from the participants' experiences, we use them, this mixed methods approach in both projects was used in order to understand what works best in each type of intervention. So on the BOUNCE project, what works best and gender-based violence prevention programs, and what's useful for these students and for these programs, and what students can take with them later on, so the impact is going to have on them. And on the ATHENA project, how we can help both professionals, caregivers, and also victims and survivors with intellectual disabilities cope both, well, on one hand, cope as professionals and have the training, as we've seen in the focus groups results. A lot of professionals ask for more training, and even caregivers have specific needs. So how we can attend to all of these target audiences, how we can attend to their needs, and make sure, again, that we can adapt this to their reality and works best for them. And how we can do that through these mixed methods. And I think that only through these methodologies can we sorry?
Foi alguém que tinha o microfone desligado. Podes continuar.
All right. So how can, through both of these methodologies, we can, or better yet, through these methodologies, through the mixed methodology, we can actually, we're hoping we can get a more richer data, so an enriching comprehension about the research topics that we have. And like I said, so we want this to be collaborative, although it's complicated, and that's why we're putting together different techniques, so questionnaires, focus groups, interviews, biographical narratives. And so on the one hand, what we would like to do is underline the importance of the comprehensive interpretative nature capable of analyzing in depth the data collected. So make sure we can cover as much as possible of these professionals and students and victims' realities. So we can have a more rigorous, if I can use that word, approach and to what their experiences are. And in the case of the BOUNCE project, we can do this also through the work of hermeneutic comparison. And we are also hoping that these methodological options give us the capacity to do good work in education, and it can also widen the scale of thought and action, so we can think of education beyond of the ways that already think of it. So not long ago, so some people were told that gender and education weren't two things that came hand in hand. So we also want to make sure that gender equality, gender-based violence can be anywhere. We can do a lot of things with it, and in education especially is so important. But also it can be used in training professionals, making sure we don't just have gender-based. We are concerned with gender-based violence, but also concerned. You raised the questions about different cultures, so make sure we have a good grasp for intersectionality, which is in itself another different dimension that's very hard sometimes to include in the research, because it gives us a lot to think about. But also to have that in mind and try to implement that whenever possible. And I think that this scale, this large lens that we have onto people's daily lives and how they can help us. So I'm not going to say the larger the better, because that's not true. But I think that
it is not true. Yes,
it is not true. But it's important that we cover different things and different aspects, so we can also, our lives are so rich as people. We do so many things, and we think so many different things at the same time, so it's important that we can capture all of these concerns. And I think that's it. So beautiful phrase to end it: coexistence of alternative paradigms and the crossing of the epistemological and methodological traditions of the various social sciences give rise to a multifaceted and complex scientific field, which is, as we all know, very, very hard to do, but it's I think at the end it's worth it. So thank you for everything. Thank you for joining us. Maria José, I'm not sure if you want to say anything else.
Just to say thank you for being with us here, and also for your questions. Without the questions, we would not have the debate. And so thank you all for your inputs and issues.